It's the second week of June, the last day of school was Friday, and your kids slept until 11 and then ate cereal standing over the sink in their PJs. Then they played Roblox for 4 hours. And then they told you they were bored. And you thought, it's literally day 3. We have 10 weeks of this. By week 2, the morning routine you spent all year building, gone. The homework habits, irrelevant. The chore chart that sort of worked, it's hanging on the fridge like a historical artifact. By July, your kid can't find their shoes, can't remember what day it is, and gets genuinely angry when you suggest doing anything that isn't a screen. And you're standing in the kitchen thinking, how do we go backwards so fast? If you've lived this, or if you're watching the calendar right now and dreading it, this episode is for you. Welcome back to Insights from Insight. I'm Amanda, and today we're kicking off a brand new month-long series I'm calling the Summer Blueprint. Last month, we built the Consultant Parent Toolkit, 4 evidence-based strategies for diagnosing what's really going on when your child can't or won't do the thing. If you missed it, go back and listen. It's foundational. This month, we're zooming in on the skill set that underlies almost everything we talked about in April, executive function. What it is, why summer destroys it, and what you can build starting now before school lets out so your family doesn't fall off what I'm calling the summer cliff. Let's get into it. Before I tell you why summer wrecks executive function, I need to make sure we're all working with the same definition, because this term gets thrown around a lot and it's almost never explained in a way that's actually useful for parents. Executive function is not just one skill, it's a family of skills, all managed by the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain that's responsible for planning, decision-making, impulse control, and managing your own behavior. Think of it as your brain's air traffic control system. That's the analogy the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard uses, and I love it because it's so accurate. Air traffic control doesn't fly the planes. It coordinates them. Which one takes off, which one lands, which one holds, and which one gets rerouted because of weather. Executive function does the same thing for your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It decides what gets attention, what gets put on hold, what gets started, and what gets stopped. There are typically 8 core executive function skills, and I want to name them because you're going to hear them all month. 1 is working memory, which means holding information in your mind while you use it, following multi-step directions, remembering what you went upstairs to get. 2 is organizing and planning, breaking a big goal into steps, knowing what to do first, and keeping track of materials and deadlines. 3 is time management, which is estimating how long things take, starting on time, and pacing yourself through a task. 4 is self-monitoring, checking your own work, noticing when you're off track, adjusting your approach mid-task. 5 is cognitive flexibility, which is shifting gears when plans change, handling transitions, and seeing a problem from a different angle. 6 is inhibitory control, which is stopping yourself from doing the impulsive thing, waiting your turn, and thinking before you act. 7 is emotional regulation, managing frustration without melting down, recovering from disappointment, and staying engaged when something is hard. And 8 is task initiation, which is actually starting the thing, not just thinking about starting the thing. Now here's the part that matters for today's conversation. These skills are not innate. They are built through practice. And they are built, and this is critical, through structured, repeated experience. Adele Diamond's landmark research at the University of British Columbia has shown that executive function develops most rapidly between ages 3 and 25. Yes, 25. And that the development is experience dependent, meaning the brain builds these circuits in response to the demands placed on it. Which brings us directly to summer. You've probably heard of the summer slide, the well-documented loss of academic skills that happens when kids are out of school. I did an entire series on it last summer in 2025. Decades of research going back to Cooper and colleagues in 1996 have confirmed that students lose an average of 1 to 3 months of learning over the summer, with the biggest losses in math and reading fluency. But here's what almost nobody talks about. The executive function cliff is worse. Because academics are just content, you can reteach content, but executive function is the operating system that makes learning possible. And when the operating system degrades, it's not just grades that suffer, it's everything. Let me explain why summer is uniquely devastating for EF skills. During the school year, your child's executive function is externally scaffolded all day long. Think about it. The bell rings. That's time management done for them. The teacher says, open your textbook to page 42. That's task initiation done for them. There's a schedule on the board. That's planning done for them. There's a due date on the assignment. That's organization done for them. There's a teacher monitoring the room. That's self-monitoring outsourced. There's a structured environment with rules. That's inhibitory control supported by the setting. School is basically an executive function prosthetic. The structure does the EF work so your child's developing brain doesn't have to. Now remove all of that overnight. That's what June does. Suddenly there's no bell, no schedule, no external deadlines, no one prompting them to start, no one telling them to stay on task, to switch activities, to manage their time. The scaffolding disappears, and the developing brain, which was leaning on that scaffolding, stumbles. Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the foremost researchers on ADHD and executive function, has written extensively about this. He argues that EF skills are most vulnerable when the external environment fails to compensate for the internal deficit. In his words, executive function deficits are performance deficits, not knowledge deficits. Your child knows they should get dressed. They know they should start the chore and put down the game. They cannot execute it without the environmental structure that was holding the behavior in place. And for neurodiverse kids with ADHD, autism, anxiety, learning disabilities, learning differences, the cliff is steeper because their executive function is already developing on a delayed timeline. Research by Thomas Brown at Yale suggests that kids with ADHD have EF skills roughly 3 to 5 years behind their same age peers. So your 12-year-old with ADHD may have the executive function of a 7 or 8-year-old. Remove the scaffolding from a 7-year-old and hand them an unstructured summer. You can predict exactly what happens. But, and I need to say this clearly, this is not just an ADHD issue. The summer cliff hits every developing brain because no child under 25 has a fully mature prefrontal cortex. And Gen Alpha kids who've grown up with the algorithmic content that serves the next dopamine hit automatically have even less practice with self-directed executive function than previous generations. This is not their fault, and it's not your fault either. It's a mismatch between brain development and environmental demands. And the good news is that it's fixable. Not by accident, but by design. So if summer removes the scaffolding, what specifically disappears? I want to get concrete because structure goes away is too vague to be useful. There are 3 critical things the school provides and summer removes. If you understand these 3, you can rebuild them at home, and that's what the rest of this month's series is about. First off is predictable transitions. During the school year, your child's day is a series of transitions managed by external cues. The bell, the bus, the schedule, the teacher. When they say wrap it up, they are providing that tool. Transitions are one of the hardest executive function demands because they require cognitive flexibility, the ability to stop one thing, mentally shift gears, and start another. In summer, transitions become a free-for-all. When does screen time end? When does lunch happen? When do they go outside? When is bedtime? Without external cues, every transition becomes a negotiation. And if your child struggles with cognitive flexibility, which most neurodiverse kids do, every transition becomes a battle. This is why you'll notice that screen time is the biggest summer fight. It's not because your child is addicted to Roblox. It's because Roblox requires 0 transitions. The game manages everything for them. When you ask them to stop, you're asking them to perform the hardest executive function skill, cognitive flexibility, with 0 scaffolding, and at a moment when they're neurologically locked in to a high dopamine activity. Of course, they're going to melt down. Number 2 is externally paced time. School chops the day into blocks. 45 minutes of math, transition, 50 minutes of English, transition, lunch, and then another transition. Your child never has to figure out how to pace themselves because the environment does it. In summer, time becomes this huge, shapeless blob. Your kid wakes up and faces 12 hours of unstructured time. For a developing brain with weak time management skills, That's paralyzing. It's like asking someone to print a mural with no canvas edges. They don't know where to start, how to pace, or when they're done. This is why kids say I'm bored 30 minutes into summer, even though they have a room full of toys, a yard, and a library card. They're not actually bored. They're overwhelmed by unstructured time. Their brain is looking for someone to pace them, and no one is. Number 3 is social accountability. At school, your child is performing for an audience all day. The teacher sees whether they started the worksheet, classmates notice if they're the last ones to pack up. There are social consequences for being off task. Not harsh ones, but real ones. The social accountability is a massive EF support. And if your kid was impacted by COVID and missed school in any way, this is already going to be behind kids in their same age group pre-COVID. In summer, the audience disappears. There's no one to notice that they didn't start the chore. No one watching whether they followed through. The only accountability is you, and that puts you into the manager role we spent all of April trying to escape. Peg Dawson and Richard Guare, who literally wrote the book on executive function, Smart but Scattered, argue that the single biggest predictor of EF skill development in children is the degree to which the environment provides consistent, predictable structure with gradual increases in responsibility. Summer by default provides the opposite. So what do we do? This month, I'm going to give you a complete blueprint for building summer structure that actually works. Not a rigid military-style schedule that falls apart by day 2, but a flexible framework that supports your child's executive function without turning you into a drill sergeant. So here's what's coming. Next week, we're going to talk about something that might surprise you, your own executive function. It's Mother's Day week, and here's my gift to you. The honest truth is that most of us are asking our kids to develop skills we haven't fully developed ourselves. And that's not an insult, it's an invitation. Because when you understand your own EF strengths and gaps, you become a dramatically better coach for your child. In week 3, we're getting into the practical stuff, what I call flexible structure. How to build a summer routine that's predictable enough to support executive function, but loose enough that your kid doesn't mutiny by Tuesday. Time blocks, visual schedules, choice boards, and the one rule that makes it all work. And in week 4, I'm going to put it all together and talk about what it looks like to actually launch this in your home. Your summer launch pad. That episode is going to connect directly to something I've been building behind the scenes that I'm really excited about, so stay tuned. But today, I want to leave you with something you can start using right now, before school even lets out. Here's your practice for this week. I want you to do what I call the Summer EF Audit. It takes 10 minutes. Grab a piece of paper or open the Notes app on your phone. Write down the 8 executive function skills I listed earlier: working memory, organization and planning, time management, self-monitoring, cognitive flexibility, inhibitory control, emotional regulation, and task initiation. Now think about your child. Not the child you wish they were, the child you actually live with. And rate each skill on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 means cannot do this independently at all, and 5 means does this consistently without prompts. Be honest, this isn't a test. Nobody's grading it. It's just a diagnostic. When you're done, circle the 2 or 3 skills with the lowest scores. Those are your child's EF vulnerabilities, the ones that summer is going to hit hardest. Now here's the insight. Those low scoring skills, they're the ones that need environmental scaffolding this summer. Not lectures about responsibility, not consequences for forgetting, scaffolding. If time management is a 1, your child needs visible time blocks and timers, not a talk about being responsible with their day. If task initiation is 2, your child's need a first 3 steps list taped to the wall, not you yelling, just start it from the kitchen. If cognitive flexibility is low, your child needs a transition warning system, something like 10 minutes before we switch, not a sudden turn it off now. That triggers a meltdown. The audit gives you a map, and the map tells you where to build the scaffolding before the summer cliff hits. If you want the full breakdown of all 8 EF skills and what they look like in daily life, this week's blog post goes deep. It's called The Summer Cliff, and it walks through each one with a real example. Link is in the show notes. I do want to be really direct with you for a second. Summer regression is not inevitable. I know it feels that way. I know it feels like every May you brace yourself for the chaos, and every August you spend the first 3 weeks of school trying to rebuild habits that disappeared in June. But the research is super clear. Executive function skills don't degrade because of rest. They degrade because of the absence of structure. Rest is good. Unstructured time is good. In doses. But when the entire scaffolding system vanishes overnight, developing brains lose their footing. You cannot prevent summer from happening, but you can build a system that keeps executive function supported, not drilled, not worksheet to death, but supported, through the months when school isn't doing it for them. That's what this month is about, the summer blueprint. And I genuinely believe that if you implement even half of what we cover, August is going to feel different this year. Next week, we'll talk about your own EF. Happy Mother's Day to every parent out there who's been pouring from an empty cup. We're going to talk about refilling it and about the executive function skills you didn't know you were struggling with too. If this episode was useful, send it to one parent who's already dreading summer. And if you want research-backed strategies delivered to your inbox every week, sign up for the email list. The link is in the show notes and on our website, insighteducationacademy.org. Thanks for listening. You're building something important, even when it doesn't feel like it. I'll see you next week.